Did Lane Myers' wife/girlfriend, Katherine Henrichs, lie about having a protective order against Direct D? Direct D says he was never served, promises to get filings by Henrichs. Finds it ironic that he's being accused of what Myers calls protected speech. Chille DeCastro delays board game again, learns OBS. Also, gets spanked in new documents in his case against Team Skeptic, Kate Peter, Blue Bacon, and Daniel Clement. Will his "I gotta reset this case before I lose it" tactics work? Plus, Regan Benson goes on rampage at Englewood City Council Meeting. You thought she was retired? So did she. But they keep dragging her back in. Really? I'm your humble newsreader, Pants. You're a doe-eyed beauty who has never gone this far with a pair of animated pants before, and you're about to experience what the cool kids call auditing insanity. Christopher Direct D. Ruff went live on his Christopher Ruff YouTube channel Tuesday night and questioned Lane Myers' wife/girlfriend, Katherine Henrichs' statement to police that she had filed a protective order against him as he had yet to be served said order. Ruff was reading from the copy of the Pima County Sheriff's Office official report of the March 10th, 2025 incident at Myers' house that we obtained yesterday. Myers had called the sheriff's office to report that the window to his computer room had been broken via gunfire. Police investigated, and units on the scene determined that the window had been smashed with two large rocks that were sitting on the floor of the computer room. Myers told the police that Ruff was responsible for the attack, but couldn't identify the actual assailant or make and model of the car the perpetrator was driving, as he did not have his contacts in. Myers would then broadcast twice after police left, in one directly blaming Ruff for the incident, in the second blaming Ruff associates Jim Freedom and Mitch Lovin directly for the assault. Despite telling police that he didn't have his contacts in, Myers described Mitch Lovin in detail on the live stream as the man who broke his window, then was able to detail the make and model of Jim Freedom's car. Henrichs had been walking her dogs at the time of the incident. When questioned by police, she had no knowledge of the incident and denied seeing a car speeding off from the scene. She said that she knew her husband was in an online altercation with Ruff, but said she couldn't really describe what was going on. In the 3 days that followed the incident, she contacted police 3 times, and her story changed significantly. Now she was sure that Ruff was responsible for the attack, as he had called her out on a post on his YouTube community page and had been harassing her. After initially saying that she had no idea where Ruff lived, other than he lived somewhere in northern Arizona, she asked police if she could take out a protective order against him. The next day, she contacted the police again to say that she had indeed been granted a protective order against Ruff. Henrichs did not provide the police with a copy or details of the protective order in her statement. Ruff stated that the only protective order that Henrichs could have obtained would have been a temporary one, which would have expired by now. He said it was unlikely that she obtained anything more permanent, as that would have required service of him, and that he would have been offered the opportunity to fight said order. The YouTuber also said that he found it ironic Myers is currently sitting in jail for allegedly stalking and harassing Shannon Walker, a public employee of a university in Arizona. Myers has justified the alleged harassment by stating that his victim is a public employee and that his direct contact with her was protected speech, covered by the First Amendment. Henrichs currently works for a nonprofit funded by the government. She has had no direct contact with Ruff, but according to Myers, Ruff's speech was harassment, and he should be prosecuted for it. Our own cursory search of records of Henrichs's alleged protective order turned up nothing on Tuesday. As protective orders are civil matters, but filed with the Arizona Supreme Judicial Court and are public records, we will be following up on the alleged protective order. Ruff also promised to follow up, stating that he would be obtaining the phone calls Henrichs made to police, along with body cam footage from the scene. He vowed to fight any protective order Henrichs may take out against him in the future, and mocked Myers for his double standards. Myers' exposure on Ruff's show did nothing for his fundraising efforts. His Give Sun Go campaign, along with Ruff's GoFundMe campaign, joined most of the market in goose eggs for the day, with no new donations. Frequent Ruff critic Clash with Bow won the day with a $200 donation to his GoFundMe campaign, extending his string of wins into a second week. This is a breaking news story. We need your help. Both ReallyCoolSite.org's daily newspaper and our daily newscasts are funded by your continuing donations and what we make from our YouTube AdSense revenue each month. If you'd like to contribute to help us keep the lights on, eating, keeping the cats fed, defending ourselves from lawsuit threats by Lane Myers, and writing new stories to feature on both the newspaper and newscast each day, we do have a GoFundMe set up at the address on screen right now. If you can't afford to contribute, please watch our videos from beginning to end, like, share, subscribe, and comment. You can help by doing next to nothing, and we thank you in advance for pitching in. Activist for the homeless and YouTube personality Regan Benson returned to her old stomping grounds of the Englewood, Colorado Civic Center Monday night to give a fiery speech on behalf of a homeless woman and herself in front of the Englewood City Council. Benson started her Monday live stream by declaring that she thought she was taking a break from her work with the homeless, but was brought back into helping as she learned the story of Crystal Havis, a 42-year-old resident of Englewood who was now homeless. Havis alleged that she was evicted from her grandfather's home last year after neighbors complained about the state of the property and that criminal activity at the property was bringing home values down in the area. According to Havis, there was a dog fighting incident at her property involving her son and one of his friends. When police came to investigate, it set in motion a series of events where her property was quickly condemned and her family was given notice that they had to vacate the property. Avis claimed that her 92-year-old grandfather was placed in a nursing home against his will, and that the property was condemned without giving the family the opportunity to fight the action. According to Avis, she was given an opportunity to gather belongings at the house, but was prevented from going inside to retrieve her purse after collecting her cat from inside the house. Both Avis and Benson addressed the Englewood City Council Monday night. Avis said that she had been living on the streets of Englewood for months in a tent. She complained that the Englewood police had been harassing her, and that she had nowhere else to go since the property she lived on for most of her life had now been condemned. After her speech, Englewood City Manager Sean Lewis directed her to the police representatives stationed at the back of the room to see about getting access to her house in order to retrieve her purse, which contained her money and ID. Benson's speech mentioned Avis briefly and said that anyone who backed the actions of the police against Avis and her grandfather could burn in hell. She called out the corruption she saw in Englewood City Council and stated that multiple lawsuits were either filed or in the process of being filed against the city. She then chastised Englewood Police Chief David Jackson for responding with a form letter to the assault report she submitted to police. Benson would later reveal to her audience that she sent a demand to the entire city council, City Manager Lewis, and Chief Jackson for a response to the report within 24 hours, which prompted Jackson's response. She finished her remarks by calling Englewood Mayor Othniel Sierra scum for backing the actions of police and complaining that no one on the Englewood City Council took her serious. When Avis finished her remarks, she made contact with Police Sergeant Adam Wright. She told Benson's viewers that Wright took her contact information but was less than helpful, as he was one of the officers on the scene of the eviction, and claimed that she had plenty of time to retrieve her belongings on the day of the eviction. After the encounter, Benson and Avis asked the police officer who was working security to contact Englewood's on-call homeless advocate for further help. The officer complied and later contacted the pair with an update indicating that the homeless advocate asked for Avis to come to the Englewood Police Headquarters to meet and go over resources that the city could provide her. Benson told the officer that Avis would not go over to the police department and then berated the man for not doing more to help Avis. Benson screamed that the officer was a piece of shit, and he could tell Sergeant Adam Wright to go suck a dick too, before storming out of the Civic Center. Avis and Benson then drove over to Avis's grandfather's property. The windows of the home had been boarded up, and a fence was put in place to block access to the garage at the back of the property. Benson berated the city of Englewood and declared that the city council could burn in hell before ending the broadcast. YouTube viewers, please click the link to the text version of this article to access documents related to the lawsuit discussed within this video. Tuesday saw a bit of success for Jose Chille DeCastro, as his associate, Friends with Code, was able to get his OBS software up and running, and DeCastro was able to live stream a rudimentary, vertically formatted live stream that featured a green screen image of his face in the lower portion of the screen. His success was greeted with elation from his fans, who hailed him as a genius for figuring out OBS so quickly after his failings with the software on Monday. His detractors, however, painted a different picture. They said that his broadcast had been downgraded as the visual presentation now consisted of a full-screen video area where full-size videos would be distorted by the vertical format, and a superimposed image of DeCastro's face in the lower corner, featuring his ever-present and now apparently permanent double chin. Both groups observed that DeCastro's new layout was a work in progress and was missing such things as DeCastro's Team DLZ logo, information about his products, and other elements that had been central to his previous widescreen broadcasts. DeCastro's gambit of switching to the widescreen format apparently paid off, as the stream drew 526 people for a single minute, before retreating to an average somewhere between 280 to 350 viewers for the rest of the broadcast. While above average viewership for DeCastro's live streams, Tuesday's attendance figures could not compare his viewership figures to that of other popular First Amendment auditing tube channels, which use the standard widescreen format and bring in thousands of viewers with each live stream. The viewership numbers could also not compare to the broadcasts made on DeCastro's channel by substitute host Michael Eline last year, who regularly pulled in viewership in the thousands using the vertical format, while DeCastro was in jail. DeCastro's Constitution HQ board game was briefly mentioned during the broadcast. While previously a focal point of DeCastro's work, it was now overshadowed by his vertical livestream and focus on featuring anti-police video. He mentioned that it was still delayed, and he would have the sample cards from the game late in the week. He would, however, have the posters for the game, quote-unquote, tomorrow, and would start teaching the game before he had cards in hand. DeCastro also failed to mention Tuesday's updates to his ongoing lawsuit against Kate Peter, Michael Blue Bacon Peratini, Daniel Clement, and Team Skeptic. The California Superior Court website released new documents filed by Peratini's attorney in opposition to DeCastro's attempt to have the case dismissed without prejudice. In the new filing, attorney R. Paul Kachernick wrote, on February 21st, 2025, I appeared at the continued hearing on Mr. Peratini's motion for terminating sanctions. Scott Jabellin appeared at that hearing on behalf of plaintiff. At the hearing, the court referred to a declaration by plaintiff that was supposedly filed with the opposition to the motion for terminating sanctions. There was no declaration in the court file, and there was no declaration served on me. Due to the failure of the declaration being filed and served, the court gave plaintiff the opportunity to file and serve the declaration and me the opportunity to object and reply to the declaration that I have never seen. To date, I have not been served with the declaration, and I have not seen the declaration. Incredibly, a week before the hearing, plaintiff substituted in pro per and attempted to file a request for dismissal without prejudice of Mr. Peratini. This is simply outrageous. Plaintiff in court filings has stated his intent to continue pursuing frivolous litigation endlessly against Mr. Peratini. Plaintiff's request for dismissal is patently outrageous and a tactic to avoid a dismissal with prejudice based on plaintiff's flouting of the court's discovery orders and blatant abuse of the discovery process. This gamesmanship should not be condoned by the court, and plaintiff's complaint should be dismissed with prejudice concerning Mr. Peratini, to stop plaintiff's abuse of the system and frivolous litigation against Mr. Peratini. DeCastro has yet to respond to the statement or request by Katherine to have the lawsuit against his client dismissed. If granted the dismissal with prejudice, DeCastro would be prevented from filing the charges against Peratini again. It is unclear what would happen to the lawsuit if a dismissal against Peratini was granted. The judge previously determined that Team Skeptic and Clement had not been properly served by DeCastro, and neither has had any involvement in the case. DeCastro has had a default entered by the court clerk against defendant Kate Peter, however. The judge has yet to hold hearings related to that default. The next set of hearings in the lawsuit are scheduled for May 29th, 2025.